Well. We at it again, people. We are looking at is Linux gaming better than Windows sometimes? Again, don't harass anyone. Opinions are just opinions. We all have them. They're all wrong. I've been gaming under Linux since the first time I installed Linux in the late 90s. I opened up a fucking solitaire and I've been trying all kind of games that was available under Linux ever since. I've been gaming under Windows for over 30 years. I've been gaming on consoles and all that kind of shit. I know a little bit about gaming. I'm really passionate about gaming. I have a lot to say about gaming. So let's see how this is going to manifest into me either raging for fucking 10 hours or actually agreeing with this little dude that a lot of people really don't like.
Past video, I slammed Linux gaming. I was like, how is it this bad compared to Windows in Elden Ring? But
here's the I don't know if it's me, but it looks really choppy, his video. But yeah, it all depends on the game. Again, it all depends on the game. That's it. It all depends on the game.
But one thing I left off on that last video is simply the fact the Steam Deck plays this game at a capped 30 FPS. And that is amazing because the Steam Deck's hardware kinda is meh.
Yeah, it's meh. But here's another thing. Can we actually see the resolution? Yeah, it's 22,500 something by it's 1,440. What you can do to make your game run better is that you can downscale and upscale. You know, you instead of rendering it in true 1080p, you may render the game in 720p and upscale it to 1080p, so your monitor sees it as 1080p, but it's really upscaled so that it takes less resources for the hardware. You can, the draw distance, the shadowing, there's a lot of things you can handicap, for lack of a better word, to make it functional less hard. And that's what a lot of games do under consoles. There was this big debate, I think it was Xbox 360. They were like, oh, it's 1080p and blah, blah, blah. And they found out that, yeah, when you're looking at your screen, it says 1080p, but the games were actually upscaled. Meaning that the system was rendering them in lower resolution and upscaling it because people start to see that there's a little bit blurriness there. That don't make sense that this should be true 1080p. So we don't know if they're doing that. If it's just because they are upscaling it. On the Steam Deck, that is. And also, to be verified on the Steam Deck, you don't even have to support 720p, which is something else.
It should never beat a desktop computer that I'm running on. And right here is Linux. And the one I was running on Tuesday was also Linux. A Linux system I had for probably 6 months or so was the last time I wiped it out, and I did a bunch of different stuff to it.
He wiped its butthole. I don't know, sorry, I'm a little bit juvenile.
And I could not even equal the Steam Deck on that old install. So today, the entire day, all I've done was wipe it out, revisit it, do all the different settings. I'm like, if Steam can make that little tiny processor do all those things.
Again, not running in true 1080p and blah, blah, blah. Modifying a lot of things about the game so you don't get the same fidelity that you may get on your gaming system. There's a lot of things that they can do to trick you and trick the system to run better. But you're actually getting a lesser experience if you like. And here's the thing. Most people won't notice, and that's fine. That don't make that system run better than yours. It just means that they do a lot of trickery to make you think that you're getting either the same experience or a little bit less experience.
Things on Linux, there's no reason we can't. And this is what I have to show for it. Now, there's a couple things I want to note here. This is still not very optimized. This is stock settings in a lot of different ways. It's using the Proton Experimental from Steam. I was working with Glorious Egg Rolls version. It was having some issues, so I went...
And here's the biggest problem I have with Linux. You should not do any of that, okay? If you really want gamers to go to Linux, we should not have to run experimental Proton versions and have to go and tweak and tinker to get the game run. Gamers are lazy motherfuckers, okay? That's why we are fat, you know? We just want to, new game, install, play, eat Doritos, drink Mountain Dew, get even more unhealthy, forget about girls. That's all we want to do. We don't want to be tinkering and shit like that. Really not. Until Linux can do that, it's not a competition at all. They're not even in the fucking run-up to it. Stream Deck is allowing you to do that with some games, which is amazing, man.
Went complete stock with this install. I wiped out all my Linux. This right here is actually Fedora. I installed Fedora. This is obviously a highly customized version of Fedora.
Again, so we need to really, really customize Linux for something you basically just download and click and play on the Windows. How should this make gamers go to Linux?
Because I hate GNOME and some other Linuxy things that I had to personally change, but you don't need to. That's just my layout. But what I wanted was this right here. All these workspaces, virtual desktops working in tandem with my gaming experience. So
you can get virtual desktops to do the same on the Windows, just saying.
Don't have the craptasticness of Windows and the gaming aspect. Because if I can play Elden Ring on this, bruh, I'm not going back to Windows for at least another couple days. I joke, but I'm just saying this is actually really nice. And we were seeing frame times, and if you look at our frame times down there, again, we're looking for like really heavy stutters and other stuff. And this is just the intro area. And we'll look through here. You'll see it's pretty darn smooth. You might see a little hiccup, but man, that graph, those frame times graphs, very, very solid.
It looks good. I'm not going to lie. It looks good. It looks solid. Yeah, I could play it. But again, do I have to do all of those fucking tweaks and blah, 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 and all that fucking shit to get it to work where on the Windows I just click play? That's a big downside for me. Here's the thing. When I want to game, that's when I stop tinkering. That's when I stopped using my brain to some. I'm not saying that you're stupid for gaming, but you get what I'm saying here. When I want to game, I just want to sit back, relax, and have no fucking issues. I don't want to think about, oh, did I do this? Did I use this command? Did I remember to put this launch command into the launcher to make sure it works on the... No, I just want to click play. And there are games on the Windows that don't do that. And you know what? I bitch and moan and fucking yell and scream at the developers for that. I even refunded games because of that. I just want my games to fucking work. I don't want to work to get my games to work. I want them to work.
And this is running at a higher resolution than I was running in Windows. So it's a lot sharper. So I'm noticing a big difference in the actual graphics, which right there you see a little bit, but not too much. It's very hard to point out if I wasn't looking at the actual frame times. And bam.
I will say this, I fucking love he's using the frame times because a lot of Linux game reviewers, they don't do that. I have experienced that I can play the same game on the Windows and Linux, but I have a better experience on the Windows. Why? Frame time. And the lower 1% or what the fuck they are called, all those, like stuttering, input lag and stuff like that was something I dealt with on the Linux. In this instance, frame times is more important than max and min frame rate. I love he's doing this. Like, I'm giving him a beer for that.
Right back to where we were. So a pretty good run through. And if you look at the system settings that we're running, this is running a full 1440p, and only these three things are off. Everything else is on a high.
Good settings.
And on just a Vega 64, so about a 4 or 5 year old GPU.
A high-end GPU.
These kind of results. And this right here is very, very playable. We can go ahead and run down to a bunch of monsters. 1 second, I'll time lapse this.
So time lapse. When should you use them and when should you not use them? If you're just going from A to B, just do a fucking jump cut or something like that. If you are building something, making something, yeah, time lapse is a good idea. I don't want to see his fucking sped up 10 times just to see him go over and fight a monster. Just jump cut to the fucking monster.
So now we are in some water with some reflection, but there's not as much like particles in the air and stuff, so it's actually a little easier. And you can see we can just run through here, see a bunch of monsters, but man, look at those frame times, just smooth as butter.
They are smooth, man.
I can just sit here all day and not run into any hiccups.
I kind of I hope he does that later on. Take the same install and not do any customization to it whatsoever, meaning he's just taking this game, installing Fedora, the same desktop and stuff like that, taking this game and not using the experimental version of Proton or anything like that, using the officially released version of Proton and see how it is, because that's how most people would be doing it. He's playing a game in a situation right now that most people would not even think about going into that modifications that he's been doing. Most people not even want to run a fucking Clovis Eggroll version of Proton or anything like that. They just downloading Steam, using what's there, and that's it. And that's how he should be comparing these things, because this is how a tinker can get, this is how a knowledgeable person can get this to run under Linux, and this is how people that just want to, the casual person is going to run this game. So is it worth it for you to spend X amount of time customizing, tinkering to get this experience? That's what you have to do, basically come up with yourself. Like, do you want to go into all of these hoops and loops to get this experience? Or do you just want to game under Windows? Or is the native Linux gaming experience without all of these tinkering stuff actually really that bad? I want to see that.
Which, frankly, I can't really say that on Windows. So if you're just looking at this, you're not going to get this result on Windows.
What if here's another thing. What if you then deep-load Windows, you tinker with Windows, will you get better experience? I don't know. This is not an apples-to-apples comparison. It really isn't. It's not stock Linux versus stock Windows. It's modified Linux versus stock Windows, I guess. I don't know.
Much less you're going to be running at a lower resolution. So I called BS. I was like, there's no way Linux can beat Windows in its own game, because this game is made for Windows. But I'm here to tell you, this right here is a better experience.
I hope he gets to say it all depends on the fucking game
than what I was dealing with on Windows. That's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about.
He killed some rodents. What the fuck?
I love it. Now, let's go to Windows. We're rebooting to Windows, and we're going to do this exact same thing. Same settings and everything. Let's go back here. This is exactly what we're running. Advanced settings. We're going to mirror this in Windows and run the same exact route and see what we get. All right, we're back in Windows. It is time. We're going to launch back into Elden Ring.
I just noticed something. He has some stuff open in the back end, like in the taskbar and stuff like that. For this to be an apples-to-apples comparison, he has to do tinkering and tweaking within Windows, because he did that under Linux. He has to find the best drivers he can find, even if it's experimental drivers, and run those. He has to make sure that he don't have fucking stupid third-party software running that's hindering game experience. So you can't say that, oh, this is why it's better there or better or worse on the other place. You have to do the same things to the same systems. I don't know if he's gone out of his way to tweak and alter Windows 11 to work better for games. I don't know if he's done that. He did that with Linux though. So he should go through the same effort to make sure he get the most possible or the best possible experience under Windows also. Uninstall or deactivate a lot of third-party applications, take away a lot of the things that slows down your computer and so on and so on. He did that under Linux, sorry. If you want to compare stock Windows, compare it with stock Linux. Stock Proton version, stock Steam version, the libraries, the drivers, and stock desktop environment that comes with that distribution. That would be closely to an apples-to-apples experiment.
And we're going to change a couple things. So here we go. When we launch back in, we're going to go and do exactly the same settings we had in Linux. And then you can get an apples-to-apples comparison
between we can't.
Linux and Windows.
You get a modified Linux experience versus a stock Windows experience. That's not apples to apples. it's oranges to apples. If you want to compare a modified Linux experience, you have to compare it to a modified Windows experience. He went out of his way to use an experimental Proton version. He went out of his way to customize his desktop environments and, probably also deactivate a lot of services under Linux and stuff like that. It looks a lot like someone trying to sell you something and they're not telling you the whole truth. Dishonesty, maybe?
Because before, it looked like Windows was runaway, which was, I've done a lot of tests, and I was like, oh, that's probably about right. But let's see. And we're going to go to Set System, and we're going to mirror the settings we had. So we're going to have 1440p, yes. We're going to go to Advanced Settings, and we're going to change everything to high except those 3 options. So let's go ahead, switch those, just like that. Continue. We'll go to the first step, which is right where the intro spits you out at in Elden Ring. We're going to run to the church and back, see what happens. All right, same settings and everything loaded up. You can see the FPS from this one. It looks like the color temperatures is a bit different because this has the radio.
The frame timing is way higher though.
On settings, where Linux doesn't. It just kind of works off stock, so it's a little bit cooler colors. And we're running about, I'd say, 6 or 7 FPS under Linux, and that frame time is not as smooth. So we saw just a little bit of a jolt there in the frame time. Down to the church, there we go, and nothing too bad. Couple little hiccups there.
I would say it's the same. I would even say that the frame times is a little bit higher on average on the Windows though.
But the frame times have a little bit more jitter than the Linux counterpart. So here we go. We're coming back. And then right before we hit the first step down here, you'll notice it usually lags right as we hit this hill coming up. And that's where it does on Linux, like right in here. Usually there's a little bit of a hiccup. Yep. There it was.
Honestly, I don't know if it's me, but I don't really see that big of a difference.
And back. That's what the frame times look like.
I honestly don't see that big of a difference, if any at all. I will say it looks like the coloring on the Linux machine is more vibrant than the other ones. Or is it the Windows one is more detailed than the Linux one? Because if you look at them right here, side by side, they look different.
Windows, now let's time lapse it to where all those things were in the water and see what our FPS.
Just fucking jump cut.
Yes, is at. All right, here we are. We're at about a 40 FPS, and we're back. Right over here is where we ran into.
If you look here and you look at the distance, the people over here is closer to the people over here, but these look sharper than these people over here. Oh, you can't see it from my fat face. Here. These people over here is closer to him than these are over here. But if you look at it here, they look less sharp. But they look way sharper over here. We're not even doing it in 1080p. Let's go up to 1080p. Again, they look way sharper over here than they do here. If you look at the backgrounds here, again, way sharper than over here. I don't know what that is, why that is. Could just be, what you call it, the editing software or the capture software under these different machines that are not really using the same technology. Could be that. Or it looks a lot like this over here is upscaled. So they're not running through 2560 by 1440. They're upscaling it. Because then you get these blurriness here.
All our monsters. And we're just going to fly.
Again, if you look
through here.
It's really, like, I have it at 1080p and it's really pluggy.
Here. And...
But again, you just get more detail on this one over here.
Wreak some havoc.
Yeah, look. Again, it could be the recording software. It could be the recording software. So either this over here is recorded with way lower bitrate than this one over here, or the fidelity out of the games are just not there yet.
Havoc, jump down.
Or not the same, sorry. Yeah, it just looks way crispy over here.
Ah. There we go.
Again, look here. Way more detail. Again, it's not the same fucking place, but...
Run down here.
This is kind of the same. A little bit washed out here, not so much here. Again, it could be the recording software.
See what this looks like with our rats. Our rat friends. I think we were at about a solid 60.
Here's another thing. I know why he's doing this, to get these meters up here. What I would do is I will center these two screens here, and then I will overlay this here so you have... But again, this over here is darker, more detail on the Windows version. The lighting seems to be a little bit better.
Very, very close on Windows here.
Yeah.
And that's about it right there.
Kill them. Kill them.
Oh, chunky roll.
Yeah. Boing. Hey, come on, kill them, dude.
So
Fucking
that
hell.
was a quick run through Windows versus Linux.
If I played the Windows version and did not see the Linux version, I am sure none of us would see the difference. But if you take them up against each other, I will honestly say that the Windows version seemed just as good. Like the stuttering, I don't really notice it. Maybe you have to play to noticing it. Well, I will say this: either the recording quality is just done better on the Windows, or the game just looks better on the Windows. So they must be doing something on the Windows, or sorry, on the Linux, that makes it look worse. And that could also be why you get better FPS and better frame timing, because you're basically not giving this, you're not getting the same fidelity as you're doing on the Windows, because they either are downscaling it, or it's upscaled, or they are taking away some technologies that they can't emulate on the Proton. So you're running extra lighting and extra code on the Windows machine. There's a lot of instances here. Really, really weird to me.
And I gotta say, Linux is the winner here for me, which I've been hearing the reports, but I couldn't replicate it until just now. And
so Linux is the winner if you spend time customizing and hunting down experimental versions of software plugins and so on and so on. If that's what you want to do to get a game to run, that's fine. I will, however, say, from what he showed us with the recording, the game looks better on the Windows. And it's not performing so badly that I will... Let me put it this way. If I blindfolded him and turned him around 10 times, I don't think he could see a difference between these two games. Like, he couldn't say, oh, I'm playing on the... He can't see the numbers. Just play the game. I will for sure debate that he cannot see that, or say with 100% certainty, this is Windows and this is Linux. And that's a good thing, by the way. But when we are putting them together, you get more better graphical fidelity on the Windows. Could it just be because he hadn't set up the recording software right on the Linux? Or the recording software just runs better on the Windows? We don't know, because we don't know what the settings of the recording software is. We don't know the methodology of his recording is and editing is.
This looks pretty good, and I like both. How I would say neither one's really that lackey. A lot of people are saying that it was super jittery on Windows. I wasn't able to replicate that, like many people have said. I did see a couple little jitters here and there, but nothing too crazy. I just kind of wanted to show these two things with Windows compared to Linux on Elden Ring on a stock Linux install. Now let's get...
No, it's not a stock Linux install. You modified the Linux install. You're using experimental version of Proton. That's not stock Linux install. That's something most people would not be doing and should not be doing, because now it's not stock. You're using experimental software, at least under the Proton version. Use the officially released version of Proton, and we can talk about stock experience.
Get to that Linux install and kind of show you what I've done over there. All right, we're loading back in.
So let me show you how I optimized Linux to compare to Windows. So it's not a stock install. Oh, my brain is hurting.
Into our Fedora instance here. And I want to just say up front, what was the deal with my first video? It was not even getting 20 frames, and it was very, very all over the place as far as lag goes and other considerations, much less not looking very good. And that was through Arch, and it was an Arch install I did a while back. And I switched to Fedora mainly because of one reason, and it was because of Wayland, a display renderer. Now, most people use Xorg in Linux, and the reason why I chose
compositors were stealing performances, PyCon, KD capacitor, screen mirroring issues, Xorg limitations.
This renderer was mainly because, let's just do a neofetch. And here's the stats that I was using, and you're probably noticing not too much difference between this and Arch. So what's the deal? And I think what was ended up happening was because I was using Xorg, which is a different display renderer from Fedora, this was causing issues when I went to capture because I was splitting my connection. This is running a 1440p at 165 hertz, and what you guys are seeing right here is another display basically that's mirroring my display. And Xorg was just not handling this I think it was putting an undue load onto the actual GPU, causing lower frame rates on top of some other
makes kind of sense. It makes sense.
Wonky customizations that I might have done over the past 6 months. And really all I did was blow it out, install Fedora, and then just hit DNF install Steam. When I had Steam up and going, which we'll go ahead and launch it, you'll notice a couple different things with how I launch Steam. In Steam, all I've done here was add Mango HUD, so
Again, now we are not doing apples to apples comparison. Well, Mango Hub, yeah, and game mode runs, so again, you have to...
I could see the FPS. Before, a lot of people, it's funny, Gaming on Linux tweeted at me. It was like, hey, you spelled mango wrong. You spelled it Mongo, which was pretty funny. Do game mode. Game mode, I haven't really seen much FPS difference either way. I've turned this off and I've turned it on.
I can understand Mango HUD. But anything else, if you're not modifying your launch command on the Windows, you should not modify it on the Linux, because then it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. You're not getting a vanilla experience if you are modifying stuff in one system and not the other. This is...
Yeah. But I went ahead and left it on, as I didn't see any downside to having it on. And then this. So really, even with all these off, the stock setting just blank was pretty good.
Then show it to us without those on, because now we're talking apples to apples, this is not apples to apples.
And compatibility, I say go ahead and force Proton Experimental. I tried Glorious Egg Roll 7.10.
Again, use the official released version of Proton, because then you are getting the experience that most people are getting. And oh my god, I'm getting dark here. Because then it's apples to apples. When you start to go in and change Proton versions, you are adding in different Proton versions, you're modifying your environment. You are customizing your environment, okay? So it's not a stock environment. You have modified it. Even going from Proton 7 to Experiment is a modification. What if there are ways to get, let's say, a more up-to-date experimental version of Steam that makes games run better? Did you do that under Windows? No, this is highly biased. Yeah. Let's go over here and get this done.
I could not get that working. It would just launch and then immediately crash. So something's up with my configuration compared to what Glorious Egg Roll has, but Proton Experimental is working, and working very well now on Elden Ring. So that's what the deal was with that whole thing, and what Valve has done with the shaders, I think, compared to what you see in Windows, compared to Linux, is substantial. Not only is it playing a Windows game in Linux, but we're actually getting a little bit ahead of Windows in FPS.
Yeah, of course you do, if you're not getting the same graphical fidelity. Again, it looked a lot... Again, it could be the recording software, but it looked way worse on the Linux compared to Windows. The crispness was not there, the coloring was a little bit off. That could be the recording software there. the clearness, it looked like a game that was upscaled from, let's say, 1080p to 1440 under Linux, or 720p to 1440 under Linux. And under Windows, it looked like it was running native resolution. Again, could be the recording, the bitrate, could be something he did in the editing software. I don't know. But if you looked at them side by side, it was almost night and day difference between them.
In this game. Now, Elden Ring's a little bit of a weird game. Many Windows users will point that out. And one thing I really wanted to see on this is something like a Cyberpunk. And I'm probably going to do a future video specifically on Cyberpunk. I'm updating it now. And I wanted to talk about FSR and DLSS, which are upscaling technologies so you could run at like a 720 resolution, but make it look like you're running at like a 1440p resolution. And you get all those sharp images, but you have very, very little load on the actual system itself. And AMD itself is running a new FSR, I think FSR 2.0 coming out, which is going to be huge for the entire realm of gaming. And when I said in the past video, this is the future, and I showed you all the different things I was doing, I don't think it was a fair shake on Linux part because I was just showing one side, but I'm glad I did that because I want people to know this is a possibility. It could...
Again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. It's a good video. But it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. It's not vanilla everything versus vanilla everything on the Windows. If you're tweaking... What he have done here is he have made every effort to make Linux look as good as possible, and made non-effort to make Windows look as good as possible. Now we are not having an apples-to-apples comparison. Again, not to mention about the fidelity just look better under Windows. Again, it's amazing that Linux can do this. I would happily game under Linux with this, but it's not apples-to-apples comparison. He's made Linux look the best, come out the best, and let Windows just be Windows. Not really how you do a somewhat objective, scientific, whatever you would call it, comparison. You let this... Here's the thing. You should not have to optimize Linux. You should not have to optimize Windows. You install Steam, you run it with the default settings as you do under Windows. And then we can talk about comparison.
Just kind of be a dog on your system if you install the wrong distro and you have the wrong hardware. Linux is one of those things you kind of have to plan for. And I knew...
And most people don't want to do that. I'm sorry to say it, but...
my system would work right. It's just something in there was messed up. So I switched everything and blew it all out and said, okay, I'm going to pick Fedora mainly because Glorious Eggroll, which does most of the game development in Proton, uses Fedora. And that was my whole rationale behind it. As I always think, distribution doesn't matter very much. It's just different package managers to install stuff. So I don't really care which one I'm in. That's the only reason I picked Fedora, because I was like, if he's in it, that's probably going to be my best bet to get the best results for gaming. And I got to say, the stock setting right out of the gate, super impressed.
It's not... Yeah, it's stock settings. You're not using anything modified here at all. It's stock settings. I'm running a stock computer. I don't have modified cooling on it or anything like that. It's a stock computer I'm running right now. Because I bought everything in a store.
And I wanted to make this video to kind of make up for the Tuesday's video and show you the flip side of Linux gaming actually being better than Windows gaming.
Okay, you get the gist of this one here. Give me a second. I want to fix my cam again down here. It's fucking irritating. I need better lighting, man. What this video is that Linux at its best, modified Linux as its best compared to stock Windows. This is what he's saying here. That is great. This is amazing if you want to go through those hoops. finding the right distribution, using the right display driver, using the right hardware, modifying X, Y, and Z config files, modifying the Proton versions and stuff like that, or using experimental or different Proton versions. If you want to do all that, this is fucking great, and Linux can compare to a stock Windows experience. However, if you just install Fedora, Arch, and Java, God forbid it, some other Linux distribution, and you just click Package Manager, install Steam, enable Proton or Steam Player, what it's called, downloading a game, 90% of the time you will get a better experience on the Windows. Just the fact of it. Stock native Linux versus stock native Windows, Windows will win most of the time. Modified Linux will either surpass Windows or be as good as Windows. But who say that that modification is kept over an update? I have had games running perfectly under Linux. Great under Linux. I did an update of either Steam, didn't even run anymore. No fucking Proton version will run it. I have had a game run perfectly under Linux. Even better than under Windows. I did a distribution update, now it ran fucking worse than under Windows. Consistency is also something we have to look into here. This is not an apples to apples comparison. I don't really mind this video that much. It's actually a really, really good video. I just mind the way that he's putting this idea up that we are using a stock Linux versus a stock Windows. We are not. He is saying that Linux is leaps and bounds ahead of Windows or comparable with Windows when gaming. Most games no, some games yes, because this, again, he wants to try with Cyberpunk. That's great. That's 2 games. You have to do this with like 100 games or more before you can get to that conclusion. If your games you like to play runs under Linux and they run great, that's great for you. I'm in a situation where most of the games I want to run either don't run under Linux or they are really, really difficult to get to run under Linux. So it's not that good for me. And that's the thing. You can run most games to a satisfying degree under Windows. And you don't have to tinker and shit like that. But under Linux, that's not the case. And that's the problem. It's not the fidelity, it's not the frame rate. It's that it's so volatile a lot of times that it works today, it may not work tomorrow. And it may work on this distribution, it may not work on that distribution. And then you do an upgrade of either the distribution or the software and things are fucking shit out of luck again. That's the problem with gaming under Linux. It's the consistency is not there. But anyway, make of it what you want. It's actually one of his better videos if you ask me. But yeah, I will see you all later. Bye bye.